Hello everyone, Ruby Ravel here, wielding lightning bolts and electrodes, ready to shock you out of yourselves, as today's sensational aspect we will be discussing is Mercury in square with Uranus, which is all about interrupting and offering unwelcome intrusions to the flight patterns of our usual modes of thinking. And flight patterns to me is an accurate analogy of how our minds often function. That even though technically and theoretically our minds are these amazing laboratories in which all possible impossible realities can be conceived, a bit like Georges Louis Borges's Infinite Library, very often our minds can become restrictive and closed places in which we tumble along the grooves of habitual thoughts and thinking. We travel down the routes that we're accustomed to going. And just as in the same way, most of our lives are governed by routine and repetition, our thought processes often tend to be routine and repetitious as well. And while that can be very useful in terms of maintaining a constant rhythm and momentum that keeps us flowing along with the horsepower of existence, if we only allow ourselves to think along those well-trodden pathways, our thinking can become too rigid and we become closed off to new ideas and our mental apparatus begins to atrophy. And this is where Uranus comes in. Uranus is designed to shock our minds into some form of higher awareness, to make us think in directions and ways and patterns and shapes and geometric spirals that propel us out of our comfort zone, but make us welcome novel ideas that normally we might be blind to. And so you might feel under this transit, as I certainly have been feeling myself, that your mind is not perhaps as clear and focused as usual. You are finding it hard to stay pinpointed on the matter at hand, and instead your mind is flying off in all kinds of crazy speculative directions. And that's what Uranus wants us to do. It wants to explode us out of those habitual pathways and start exploring the hidden, unknown planets that linger within our own minds. And in order for this to occur, very often it can be useful if there is an external stimulus. And the external stimuli that challenges our habitual thinking doesn't always have to be that dramatic or explosive. It can just be anything that makes us alter our routine interactions in a world in such a way that it gives us that eureka moment, that aha, of suddenly taking something very familiar and mundane, which has become part of the furniture of our consciousness, and seeing it again in a new light to the point where it has essentially been intellectually reborn. And this makes me think of the film The Wizard of Oz, where we begin with Dorothy living on a farmstead in dreary old Kansas, surrounded by her dreary old relatives stuck in their dreary old routines. And then, quite unexpectedly, a massive hurricane comes along and propels her to the land of Oz. And the thing is, the land of Oz ends up being populated by distorted, symbolized, dreamlike versions of the people she encounters in her own life. You know, the lion, the tin man, the wizard, and the witch are all mythologized versions of the people who exist in her own reality already. So it's not necessarily that she's been transported to a new realm, it's that the whirlwind is like Uranus, which has enabled her to think in this topsy-turvy manner where she can now see what is usually familiar to the point of boredom in exciting and novel new ways that offer up new fruits of possible meaning. I can proffer a few examples of this transit already from my own experiences. As some of you are aware from watching my recent videos, I have moved recently. I'm in a new house. I love it. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. It's making me very happy, giving me all those contented domestic feels, giving me that warmth of Hestia and the hearth. Disrupting myself there, as you can see. But even though this house is barely 10 minutes from the one I was living before and is still located within the hometown I have spent most of my life living in, it's in a neighborhood I've had very little to do before. So even though I'm in the same place, my consciousness has been now centered in a very different mental location. And that means that all these same streets, all these byways, all these alleys that are as familiar to me as my own body, I'm now approaching or walking down from different angles. I'm getting to the town centre by different ways. Things that were once far away are now on my doorstep. Things that were once on my doorstep are now far away. And even though that's all very mundane and small, it's amazing how different and alien and new and novel these very familiar places can be when we simply take the risk of looking at them from a fresh perspective. And it's also not dissimilar to the effect that the estrogen has been having on me emotionally and intellectually. It's not that my thinking or responses or feelings about the world have changed massively. It's more that they've been tuned to a slightly more refined station. So I'm experiencing things I have experienced before, but with a heightened depth of color and emotional responsivity. As Mercury is related to our social and interactive and communicative experiences, just like Dorothy wandering through Oz encounters all kinds of strange beings and munchkins and wonderful cryptids of the consciousness. Under this aspect, we can also find ourselves interacting with unusual people, with people who fit outside of the binary and the status quo, with people we perhaps might not ordinarily interact with, but who are suddenly thrust upon our day-to-day routines in a way that might inspire us to think about things a little differently or make us question some of the too solidified thoughts of our own dogmatic approach to the world. I would also caution that on a mundane level, more accidents can arise under this transit, because obviously if our mind is busy spiraling out into outer space and traveling along byways usually reserved for UFOs, then we might not always be very conscious of what is going on in our immediate surroundings. And it's at moments like that that we're more likely to step out and walk out in front of a car or to walk into something, particularly anything that involves technology or traveling via vehicular means. Accidents are more likely to occur in that way. So please be careful. Anyway, I'm going to keep that short and sweet for now, but please share any of your own Mercury-Uranus stories or experiences in the comment section if you wish to. It's always nice to hear from you. I have put my contact details in the information box below, so if any of you want to get in contact with me for spiritual or astrological counseling sessions of some way, you are now able to do so. I've also started up my own Patreon, so if you would like to financially support this channel in some way so that I can save up to have better gear to make improved videos, that would be lovely if you are able to. And hoping my mind will feel easier to grasp the next time I make a video for you. Over and out.